The first match, I talked to 9 CEOs in 3 days. I came in super tired. I played really badly the first couple of hours and put myself in a hole. That combined with Daniel's great play put me in a hole. I said, I'll never do that again.
Phil, let me ask you about some of the strategy that I've noticed quite a bit throughout round one and round two. You're limping a ton.
Strategy. What's that? Okay.
Right. Well, okay. Well, maybe it's for you. It's zoomy or it's white magic, and then we can throw the strategy word out the window. But you're limping a ton of buttons. Can you explain the rationale behind it? And is it safe to assume, Phil, that you are simply trying to work your way into the 4 or 5 hour portion of the match, so then you can kind of come in and try and take that thing down and, I don't know, maybe get lucky?
Well, I mean, I have different theories about the way to play heads up, no limit hold'em than
Yeah.
everybody else, and so my theories are very opponent dependent. And then, having the advantage of watching a match, you're going to make adjustments and say, wow, 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 he did this, he did that. All right, how can I counteract that? And but yeah, so I mean, like it's just something that I do. I mean, it's kind of interesting that some of the stuff that I did in the '80s, they seem to copy it by the '90s. Some of the stuff I did in the '90s, they seem to copy it by the 2000s. And now that we can see people's hole cards, I take a tremendous amount of criticism for the way I play. Nick Schulman said it the other day when he was on the commentary. He's like, we all laughed at Phil's book, Play Poker Like the Pros, in the Omaha 8 or Better section, but now we all play that way. And so, it makes me wonder, either I'm a little bit ahead or way ahead, or I'm delusional and I'm way behind. And, so I don't know what I'm going to do in the third match. I may come out raising 100% of the pots from the button. So, Daniel presents a very unique challenge. He's a great player. And there's no doubt about it. He's playing a great strategy. There's no doubt about it. And so I can't really, predict how I'm going to play. What I can't predict is that I'll rewatch the match 1 or 2 more times, and that I'll spend 3 or 4 days thinking about exactly how I'm going to play. The first match, I talked to 9 CEOs in 3 days. I came in super tired. I played really badly the first couple of hours and put myself in a hole. That combined with Daniel's great play put me in a hole. I said, I'll never do that again. I went to Vegas, 4 days early, like I always do for these matches with Antonio. And this time I just cut off all communication with all CEOs, all the business stuff I'm doing, and just said, all right, listen, let's think about this a lot. Let's rewatch the match and let's see what falls into my mind. I can't talk to anybody on the planet about no limit hold'em strategy. I'll talk to Mike Matissa about every other strategy I use. I think he's a great sounding board. He's world class in a bunch of games. He understands the way I think, but I've never talked to Mike about heads up because he doesn't. I don't want to tell people what I think in heads up. I just want to keep doing it and see if it works. So it's something that I kind of, that I've really kept hidden, my no limit heads up game.
Daniel, your thoughts on how Phil just responded to Brent's question about his approach?
Yeah, so I mean, listen, so Phil, he's actually intuitively good at understanding game theory in some ways, right? So what he described, right, if for the more nerdy people that want to understand it, what he described is he saw something that was exploitable, right? I'm overfolded, okay? So what he decided was from whatever the equilibrium is, he's going to up it and start increasing his bluffing percentage a lot, right? So that's really, really good. So now I obviously saw that in the second match. So now I've seen that he's earned the calls, right? Because in match 1, I didn't call him ever when he bet over 50% pot. None. Because if you look at it, here's the thing. When it comes to theory, if somebody underbluffs, even a little, if you fold every single time when they bet big, you print EV against that, right? If they're even slightly underbluffing, right? And he clearly, was in the first match. He made the very good adjustments using game theory. So now what we're going to be at for the third match is we're going to be at something that's a little bit more close to an equilibrium of, game theory optimal play, right? Because now Phil has earned the calls, right? He's bluffed enough so that I can't make these exploitative folds. Like a perfect example was one where it came like 8-6-3. I had queen 8. it was check, flop, turns a 3, he bets, I call. River's the 10 of clubs. So I have a slam dunk game theory call, right? Especially, based on every, on my blocker.
You
and
had
all that
queen
kind of
8,
stuff.
Daniel. You had queen
Yes.
8. For the audience, you didn't tell them your hand. You had queen 8.
I said queen 8 with the queen of clubs. Okay, so I had the queen 8, right? So normally, in any situation, I'm going to be calling anybody here, right? But Phil didn't earn that from me yet, right? I haven't seen him deserve to get called. And I think overall, if say for example, if players, generally speaking, against Phil over the last 10 years, if they folded more on the turn or the river, they would neutralize him somewhat, because I think what Phil, and I know this because I'm similar in this idea, what I want to do in tournaments generally, or have, is I want people to call me too much. So that allows me to underbluff and protect my stack, right? So the biggest weapon against that is people start folding, right? So if people start folding against Phil on the turn and the river, that's going to force him to zoom mode, right? Now, zoom mode's effective. The thing about zoom mode is you lay a big price when you do that, right? So you basically have to fade your opponent's making hands, because when you do, you step into it. Like the good hand that you showed, it was a perfect example. King 6-6, turn like an 8, right? So Phil bet half his stack in that spot, right? With the draw. If I have, and the thing is, my range in that spot is going to be a king, it's going to be a 6, or it's going to be a spade draw, right? Now the 9 of spades hits the river. The other part of my range that I could have is hands that peel to flop that are backdoor diamonds. He has the 10 of diamonds and the deuce of diamonds. So he blocks a massive part of the range that he needs me to have, right? But he showed a lot of guts, and I take my hat off for him, because I was like, when he told me he had 10 deuce, I was like, really? Because I'd never seen that from him before. I've been playing with him for 20 years. I never saw him combine the pre-flop, flop, turn, and aggression as a whole. I've seen him do the pre-flop and flop, but generally speaking, his aggression factor on turn and river is incredibly low. And I'm actually going to run the numbers on the whole match, and I'll share it with you guys, the difference between Phil's playing the first and the second in terms of all his frequencies. So he made a huge adjustment, and now, well, I'm obviously going to make an adjustment back, so we're going to see a lot more like what I would consider normal poker in the third match.
Hey guys, Jeff Platt alongside Brent Hanks. This is No Gamble, No Future. Brent, what should the good people at home do today?
Well, Jeff, you gotta like,
Yeah.
you gotta subscribe,
Yeah.
you gotta follow,
Yeah.
and most importantly, Jeff, you gotta risk it to get the biscuit.